Migration has become almost impossible for students to move abroad to study and, of course, eventually remaining in the country permanently. And why is this becoming so hard? This is because of the new laws, policies that each countries are now putting into place for their country, and that of course has made it so hard for students to want to migrate. In this video I would just be discussing studying abroad in 2024, particularly with a focus to United Kingdom and Canada. And I would, try to talk about what the effect of this law would mean for prospective students wanting to come, to travel to the UK or to Canada to study. Hi guys, welcome back to a brand new video. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Suleeha. I'm a Nigerian YouTuber residing in Ontario, Canada. And if you don't know me, my content spans from daily vlog, lifestyle, and of course, DIY immigration to Canada. And if my content is your type of content, if you would like to know more about immigration, just stick around, watch my other videos, like, subscribe, and share. Thank you. So before I move on into the topic, I would just like to say that United Kingdom and Canada seem to be like, the topmost location for students, that want to migrate out of their countries. But it seems to be getting harder by the day because of the policies that these countries are now putting into place. And I believe that while I don't blame the government for trying to protect their economy and for trying to put things into order for their economy, I believe that these laws are quite stringent. And of course, it would discourage any student wanting to travel abroad or wanting to, go abroad to study or decide to migrate via the study route. And I'm just going to go into, some of the policies that are in place. And then we're just going to talk about how that effect would be for students in the coming year, which is the year of 2024. So I'm going to be starting with the UK. And if you could remember, in July of 2023, they brought up the government brought up a policy to say that students, undergrad or student coming for their master's degree would not be able to travel with their dependent to the UK if they intend to study, unless it is a post like a doctoral certification, like a PhD. Those are the only people that are allowed to bring their dependents when coming to the UK. And when the law came about, it was quite baffling, because I believe that family reunification should be one of the major core for migration. Like, if you're coming to study, you should be able to come with your family. You should have your support system. Imagine not having your support system for like a year. That would be really, really, really hard. So I also find it, a little bit stringent, like I said, and it would discourage a lot of people to want to pick UK as one of the locations that they want to come to study. Another policy that the United Kingdom brought up was the fact that students who are already enrolled in school can no longer switch from their tier 4, which is their study visa, to a tier 2 visa, which is a skilled worker visa, unless they are complete or they are done with their study. When I read those policies or those requirements, and that came into effect in July, I know that the one for the dependents isn't coming into effect until January 1st, 2024, but the one for the switching from tier 4 to tier 2 without having completed your study came into effect in July. And looking at the policy, I just felt like, of course I get it. You came into the country with the intention to study. But then the implication and the effect that this would have is to the fact that when a student actually gets a proper job, like if they are fortunate to get a job and the job is willing to sponsor them to come and work for them, the issue then becomes, I'm still in school, I came with a tier 4 visa, what can I do? A lot of students would run foul of missing out, employers that want to sponsor them genuinely. I'm not even talking about people that are, just looking out for the jobs or just trying to pay for jobs. I'm talking about the fact that when you actually find an employer that is actually willing to sponsor you, then that becomes a problem for such a student. And I believe that it's a bit stringent, like I said, because that would mean that the student is probably going to lose that opportunity, and that's it. On the positive side of things, if a student has a dependent, the good side of it is that the dependent is not stopped from converting from a dependent visa to a tier 2 visa, to a work visa. So that means that if a student is coming with a partner and the partner is just a dependent on their study visa, then such partner is able to convert from that tier 4 dependent to a tier 2 dependent because the law does not affect them. And another stringent thing that I find is to the fact that if you are a student and you have, you've completed your study, you've taken up the postgraduate work permit, which is the PGWP, you are not allowed to bring your dependent in during the pendency of your PGWP. I just find that PGWP is 2 years. Imagine having a partner, having children, and you're not able to see them for 2 years because of the law that says that if you are on a PGWP or if you've not brought in your dependent when you were still a student, you can no longer bring them in when you are on a postgraduate work permit. And I just find it absurd. It's just, it's just a bit too much. So all of these policies, the government of the UK are saying that, they are doing this to cut down, net migration, to, for more benefit for their locals. What then happens to the benefit of the student? Like, that's the question. Like, what are the students going to be gaining from you? So are you just going to be collecting and not giving back? So I just felt like there's a whole lot of one-sided to things. And one thing that I used to say is, I get it. It's their country. They're not forcing you to come. They did not beg you to come. But then it still doesn't change the fact that we are actually paying like FT amount of money to be able to stay in the country. So it just doesn't mean that you take and take and take and you're not willing to give back. So this brings me to the final reform, which is the most recent one that has thrown everyone into frenzy. Like, this one, I find it like, this is up to here. Like, it just breaks the camel's back for me, because the government came out to say that, this is going to be like coming spring 2024, these are going to be the new reforms. Like, I just shouted wow, because I couldn't believe the fact that they keep making it harder by the day. You still came in July to talk about something, and you are now coming back now in December to talk about something that's going to happen in July of 2024. So I'm just going to go through the new reform that's going to kickstart in spring of 2024, which is probably May, June, or April, May of 2024. So I'm just going to quickly read through. I wrote it down somewhere, so I'm just going to quickly read through all the reforms that recently, came up, and what the effect would be, basically. So the first one says that for healthcare workers, care workers that are coming from overseas and that have dependent, they will no longer be able to bring their dependent. Like, are you kidding me right now? Because these people are coming on a 5-year, some of them are coming to work on a 5-year visa. Some are coming to work on a 3-year visa. So are you trying to say that if someone is coming to the country to work for you in your country to better your locals, are you saying that they cannot bring their own family to come and work abroad? It's just a tad bit too much. Like, yes, I guess it's the fact that, they are trying to coordinate migration. They are trying to stop abuse. A lot of people tend to abuse the system. But I just feel like this is too drastic. Like, it's not minimal. It's a lot. It's a bit too much. So that's the first one. The second one says that companies that wants to sponsor this care visas, they will now need to go undergo a higher level of requirement. So I guess before, if care workers or healthcare workers that sponsor people are not able to, they don't really go through like all these requirements. It says they have to go through CQC. They now have to be CQC registered. So say for example, before they were not CQC registered, but now they now have to be CQC registered, which brings it to a higher level of requirement. And trust me, a lot of people might not. I don't know what the requirements are going to be. A lot of people might not be able to just go forward with that. So every one of them are just going to start hiring people that already have visas. And that makes it so hard for international students that are willing to, work in the healthcare sector, that are willing to remain in the healthcare sector. It gets harder for them to get a job because of, higher and stranger requirements. So that's also one of the effects of this reform that just came up. So I'm going to read out the third one, which is quite crazy because this third one is even going to affect their citizens. The third one says increment of minimum earning thresholds for skilled worker by 48%. So it just basically says that any employer that wants to employ you, that wants to sponsor you, that wants to do anything, they need to be able to pay you £38,700. £38,700. Like, it's so crazy because nobody, even in the UK, it's so hard for their locals to actually get a job that is going to pay you £38,000. Except, of course, it's in a higher level of what's it called, of field, basically. So it's just going to be harder. And because of these policies, a lot of employers are going to be pulling out. And I'm quite sure a lot of them are going to be pulling out from sponsoring people overseas because of the high level or high requirement of, of threshold for salaries. And then the government are saying that it would empower employers to to want to hire locals. What if the locals are not willing to work? So what then happens to their job? So it's just looking at those policies. There's more advantage, of course, to the government because they are trying to succeed in getting their migration down or in getting people coming into country to to strain the economy down. But then what then happens to people that genuinely or that have the money and they've been paying their dues, their taxes and stuff like that? What benefits are they getting back? Another one that I find is the fact that people that are able to bring in their families, say for example, people that are able to the PhD student or the workers or something that are able to bring in their family, they are now going to increase the minimum requirement and also limit the amount of dependent, I think, that you can bring into the country. It's just, I don't know how. I don't know how this is going to work. A lot of people, of course, I can categorically say that are definitely not going to be looking towards migrating to the UK because this is a lot. And then the final one, which I think that I just think that this one, because a lot of people have been paying and they've never even used the services before. So the government are saying that they are going to increase the IHS fee, which is the health insurance fee that international students pay to come into Canada so that they can use healthcare when they want to go to, the hospital, basically NHS. And it's just crazy because some people don't even use the services. So they just pay £1,000 and they don't even get to use the services, and then you're still increasing the amount, so they don't get to bring their family. They get to pay a hefty amount of money for IHS, which they probably might not use, and they study, don't get a job that is paying $38,700, then they go back home. It's just crazy. So looking at the whole situation of things and taking it back to the topic, studying abroad in 2024. I just feel like things are a bit tougher now, and I feel like it's time for people to start making, wise decisions, to start making decisions that will pay them in the long run, like decisions that would help them, project themselves in such a situation that, this is where I want to be in coming years. Because it's so hard to say that you want to move to your family because you want to move with your family because you don't know what's happening, you don't know what can happen tomorrow. And the law is just somehow, today there's one law, tomorrow they wake up, oh, this is how we want the system to be. So I think that if you intend to study abroad in 2024, particularly the UK, you need to really consider things. And that brings me to the immigration updates in Canada. Yeah, so now this is juicy. One thing I believe is that these countries, they look at each other, they see, they hear, they kind of follow up with what's happening with each other. And I think that Australia is really brewing. I believe that they are also going to come up with something very, very soon. So I'm just going to move on to immigration in Canada. Canada also, announced a futuristic policy to kickstart on the 1st of January 2024. And what does this policy requires? It basically says that the minimum requirement for cost of living, which used to be 10,000 Canadian dollars. So they are now saying that it's no longer going to be 10,000 Canadian dollars, but it's now going to be 20,000 Canadian dollars and some change. So apparently 20,635 Canadian dollars. So this does not include your remaining tuition fee and your travel costs. So basically they are saying that this particular cost that we are asking you to pay, it is the fact that you can show proof that you can sustain yourself in Canada while you are studying. And I think that all of this thing brews up from all these videos of content creators, of international students coming online to say, oh, this is where you can get food from, this is like saying different things. Because I've seen quite a lot of articles, I've seen quite a lot of videos, I've seen quite a lot of things, up and down online, where the food banks are saying that they are stretched with the amount of international students coming into the food bank to get food, which is meant for the locals, the citizens, old citizens, and the permanent residents. So I just, I believe that all of those things also play fact. They are also pivotal in the making of their decision to say that, what, this is what's going to happen, and what are the implications of this for students. The implication of this is just to the fact that students are now going to find it really, really hard to raise this money to bring up a POF, because I'm going to give an example now. So if your tuition is 12,000 Canadian dollars plus the 20,000 Canadian dollars, that makes it 32,635 Canadian dollars. So imagine you having to pay, and that does not also include your travel cost. So imagine you having to pay 12,000 Canadian dollars for your school fees. Calculate that in whichever currency you're coming from. And you now have to look for an extra 20,000 Canadian dollars for your living expenses. You've not done your flights, you've not done your accommodation. All of those things will stretch students out. So where the government expects students to get 20,000 Canadian from, I do not know. But I guess it's just to say that people should be prepared, because I won't lie, if you're coming to Canada, you would exhaust your fund and you would be left thinking, where do I go from now? So I get the fact that they are trying to make things easy, but at the same time, the implication of that is to the fact that students will find it hard to get into the country as time goes by. So that's one of the downside of this policy. And who are those people that the policy will apply to? It would only apply to students that submit their application on or after January 1st, 2024. So that's when it's actually going to kickstart. So if you submit your application before then, rest assured that even if your decision is not out, you're not going to be affected. But if you submit on or after that day, it's certainly going to be affected if your proof of fund is not sufficient enough. So they also made several policies, and the one that is quite interesting also for students who are currently in Canada right now is to the fact that they can now work for 40 hours, and students who has applied for their visa on before and on December 7, 2024, so the day the law came in, so those people are able to work 40 hours up until April 30th, 2024, when this will be revisited again, and thought about if they want to increase the working hours for students, because usually the threshold for students to come and study in Canada is just being able to work for 20 hours off campus. So I think that that's also a good news for students who have been thinking that, oh, we need to also work while we're studying and we also need to do some other things. So I think that for that's still a good one. So weighing up the fact, I just think that before embarking on any journey to say that you want to come and study in 2024, I think you need to weigh your options. You need to consider these laws. You need to keep up with immigration updates to see what's happening, to see where to go from here, and then to be able to put things in order for yourself so that you're not shocked when you travel. So I guess that's just really what I wanted to talk about: the immigration updates, the 2024, what to expect in 2024, and things like that if you want to come and study abroad. So I hope that this update gives you a thinking or a push to what you want to do sooner or later, and I hope that you've been able to pick a thing or two. And then this brings me to the end of my video on this topic, and I'll see you guys back in my next topic. Bye.